guys, so this is going to be the first real video in my JDM front clip conversion for the Legacy. I don't know if you remember in the little teaser that I did, I kind of had the front clip, the full thing sitting on a crate, and that's how it came to me. Well, I don't know if you can see it there, but yeah, I pretty much picked the bones. Only got that headlight left on there, and the foam and bumper, etc. And it's all been taken off and set aside there. So today I'm going to get to the first big step in this conversion, which is dealing with the headlights and the wiring for those headlights. So there's a couple things we need to do on these headlights. One of them is that this is a JDM, as in right-hand drive pattern headlight, which means that the cutoff for the headlight provides a lot of light on the left side of the vehicle as opposed to the right, whereas our USDM patterns provide a lot of light on the right because there's cars coming from our left. They obviously have that the other way around. So what we need to do is flip the little shield inside this projector housing, flip it like that, kind of determines the pattern of the headlight. So that's going to involve taking apart and opening up these headlights. And that's an optional step if you don't want to be a dick and blind everyone on the roads. If you do, you don't have to do that, so you can go ahead and skip that one. But I'm going to be doing that myself, and taking it apart as well is going to allow me to maybe customize, maybe darken a little bit of the inside of this headlight. So the wiring, that is going to be absolutely essential to get this thing to work on our cars. Well, how am I going to do that? If you take a look at this harness here, these headlights have a couple of things on them. They have a high beam socket, a low beam socket, which is obviously HID on these JDM models, and that's kind of the desirable point on them. They have DRL running lights built in, and then they have the turn signals here. Plus they also have the leveling or adjustment motors, which I actually do have the harness that came with the clip to stick in there, and we'll worry about that later. But for now we're going to be dealing with this, and this. Alright, so this harness obviously is the JDM one, and it comes with 6 pins. The USDM one, which comes on all of our normal cars, whether it's 05 or 09 or whatever, has 3 pins. What do they do? Well, the 6 pins, these top two, green and white and black and white, they run to the DRLs. So this is going to be your running light. That's a little light that comes on in here, kind of illuminates this whole little strip, which looks pretty sweet in these facelift cars. And then the next two, so the next two down being the red and black, can you see that there? They're running directly to the low beams, which are going in here. And what they're doing is they're going in there, they're running kind of through the thing and going to the ballast, which sits here. Why is my camera out of focus? The ballast, which sits there, and then runs its own wires to the bulb. These are the wires that go to the bulb, and then further on in there somewhere, you'll be able to see the red wires going through. Yeah, next thing we have is the bottom set of pins, which is the high beam pin, and that goes through like this, runs along, and comes up into the high beam slot like that, obviously. Let's throw that back on there. I'm not going to lock it up for now. Yeah, so one of the big differences, I should say, between USDM and JDM headlights are that the JDMs use these corners that are separate from their parking or running lights. Whereas on the USDM here, we've got a triple filament bulb, I guess you'd say, or triple wired bulb. I don't know what you'd call it. Where when you turn on your parking lights, these bulbs come on, and when you turn on your signals, they blink. With that one, the little DRL running light type things are in here, and this is solely used as a blinker. So what that means is that if you want this to run like that, you need to somehow get a triple wire bulb, you see it's only a dual in there right now, into this slot. And I have a solution for that, because this being a 7440 socket, or a W57, I think it's called. Let's see. WY21, is very similar in size to a 7440 socket, which runs on our tail lights and on a variety of other cars. So my plan here is to replace this socket with the 7443 socket, and that will allow me to run a triple lead bulb in there, which I can then use as a switch, which I'll then put a switch back in where it'll light up white when the lights come on and during the parking light function, and then flash orange, just like those ones do, and just like you've probably seen on my other car or other legacies out there. What I'm going to do with these ones is wire them up as DRLs. So anytime the car comes on, this nice light strip is going to come on with it. And then the rest of this stuff, I'm just going to wire up as per normal. So how are we going to do that? Well, this wiring harness, which I took from a spare set of USDM headlights, is going to contribute to that. So if you want to do this yourself, what you're going to need to do is either take off your headlights, take the wiring harness off of that, and use it on these, or go out and buy yourself a spare harness, or take apart some old headlights. The harness itself, I think it's like $30 for you American guys, but for us Canadians, it's a lot more expensive. That's why I just went ahead and stripped some junk headlights ahead. Yeah, so what you need to do, sorry if this is a little bit long, but what you need to do is take this harness off. We're actually going to clip this harness and solder all of the leads onto here. So where you've got 1, 2, 3, what you have is power, ground, and then the yellow is the high beam trigger. Now, none of that really matters, because what you're going to do is where this high beam is, all you'll do is take the high beam section from here, cut this high beam off, solder that high beam on, and now you have these running like that off the USDM harness. Where you're running the USDM harness like this, what you'll do is cut this red section here. So where you have red and black, you'll cut it, solder the red and black on, and then this will run in just like that. So now you have high beams and low beams together on this harness, and you've got these two which are not connected, right? Because this one has a white and green that's attached to this harness that you're not going to be able to use using the USDM. So what we need to do for that is pretty much just clip these white and greens, take the whole harness off, and run something to this from the battery using a switch relay from the accessory fuse or something that will turn that on when power is given to the car. For the turn signal side itself, that's going to be run right from the turn signal connector, which runs through here like that, and it's going to go directly there. So this all sounds super complicated. This is just a bit of an overview. I'm going to go through each part step by step and show you what I'm doing and how I do it. So if you take a look at the headlight or high beam wiring here, yellow is positive, white is negative. When I give that some power, high beam comes on. So using that knowledge, we're just going to go ahead and wire that into the harness. Here I've set up a little jump starter on the leads for the positive and negative HID low beams. So when I turn those on, low beams fire up. You can see the beam pattern warming up there, changing color. But you can see that there's more light on the left as opposed to the right, which is not what we want. That's why we need to go in there and flip those shields. Okay, so a couple hours later, and I've gotten all this stuff put together. Basically, this is still that same JDM headlight, but now we've got a USDM harness on there. So this is the connector that's going to connect right to the stock USDM harness. Then we come down here, follow it up. It goes to the high beams perfectly. Comes along, goes into here, which of course are going to lead into our HID ballast and then to the light itself. And I already tested all that out. I think I'm going to include a video of it working here, show you how that worked. So that part, low beam, high beam, is done. Now we move over to the turn signal. Remember I said there are 3 things we need to do here. We need to do these, turn signals, and then flip the shields, right? So this is going to be number 2. If you take a look here, I've got these wires coming up. I took that off of the harness that normally came with the JDM one. These 2 wires are going to be for your cool running lights here. And I put some LEDs in there and tested them and took a video, and I'll probably patch it on here in this part of the video as well. But you've got some options here. Because this is a 2-pin connection, and the USDM one is a 3-pin 3157 socket. What we need to do, and I got it right here, is get something like this. So I already ordered this, and it's going to come in a couple of days, so I'm going to have to pause this video here, but I'm going to cut it so that it's all within the same video. So what this does is this part plugs into the socket that you'd see, and then these 3 wires come from it. And what these 3 wires are the power, the ground, and the signal. So if you wanted to do the least amount of work possible, you would run power, ground, signal, ground. What that would do is when your parking lights came on, this would come on as your parking light. And when your signal came on, this would stop working, flash, flash, flash signal, back to parking light, or light that comes on with your low beams like normal. So that's the least amount of work you need to do, right? Now I'm going to take it a step further. And what I did is I ordered a set of these 7443 sockets, which I talked about a little bit before. What these do are going to replace this with a 3-prong socket that has power, signal, ground. What does that mean? Well, it means this is going to function exactly like your USDM signal light, where it comes on with your low beams or your parking lights and then flashes for signal orange. So it's going to come on as I'm going to install a switchback. It's going to be white for running, and then flash, 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 orange, back to white. This one, I'm going to steal this little connection here. I'm going to run a harness over to the battery that has a relay from the accessory, and then it's going to function as a DRL, because these are HIDs and I don't want to run them as DRLs, obviously. And who wants to run a high beam as a DRL? That's lame. So that's going to be kind of cool. I'm going to take a pause here for a sec and restart this video when I get all the parts I need and show you exactly how to do it. And then step 3 will be pop this headlight open, flip the stuff, throw it back together, and we're good to go with the headlights. Okay, so it's a couple days later and I've gotten all the pieces that I need to get this thing's wiring all finished and buttoned up. And you can see them here. So what I've got is the original socket that came out of there. Obviously you can see that's a 2-pin that flashes on and off for the blinker. And what I've got in here right now is a 3-pin, because like I said, I want to use some switchbacks. Switchbacks as in they'll turn on white and they'll blink amber and then turn back to white when they're done with the signaling. So how did I do that? Well, this is a WY21W socket, otherwise known as a 7440. And what I did is I switched it with a 7443 socket, which allows for the switchback functionality with the 3 pins. Now, this by itself is not going to fit in there, so I had to make some modifications to it. So I just pulled it out, and as you can see, all I did was I took a little chisel. I actually did this with a Dremel, but you can do it with a chisel too, and just ground down this one little side there. And what that does is it allows it to slide into the original Subaru socket here. And it even twists and locks and functions perfectly like it should. So that solves the problem of getting a bulb in the socket. Then we've got to solve the problem with the wiring. How am I going to do that? Well, this is a 3157 adapter. This plugs into the USDM 3157 turn signal socket that we all have on our USDM cars. And then it gives me 3 wires. We've got a power, a ground, and a signal. The blue one's the signal, I'm pretty sure. So all I have to do here is match them up to the 7443 spots, and we're good to go. We have a plug-in solution that you can leave in there, go out to the car, plug this into the socket, and boom, done, right? So that solves all of our wiring stuff. Last thing we need to do is pop the headlight open, flip the shields, and that's it for those. So I've gone through the second headlight here and rewired the entire harness. You can see everything is set up properly there. And now I'm going to crack this thing open and flip the shield. So what we need to do is take out all of the screws you can find holding it together. There's 2 over there, 1 over here, and a couple at the bottom as well. And then we're going to take, there's 2 methods you can do here. You can use the oven and heat the entire headlight up and pry it open like that. But what I like to do is take a heat gun and just heat the borders like this, run it along, and heat the sealant. Kind of like that. And what that does is it just protects the other components, which I don't like to expose to more heat than is necessary. Call me paranoid if you want, but it's just the way I do it. So I'm going to take my heat gun, heat that up, crack the lights open, and then get to the guts of it. Okay, so I heated up the sealant, got the headlight pulled apart here, and you can see all the innards with all the wires and stuff going on. One thing to note is make sure you remove the bulbs before you take these apart, because mine started rattling around as I was pulling it apart and I thought maybe I forgot to unbolt something. Another thing you can do here is if you want to further customize your headlight, you can take out these screws, pull out the silver part, and repaint it whatever color you want, or put in whatever kind of LED additions you want to put in, that kind of thing. For now, for me, I'm just going to go ahead and flip this shield to change the beam pattern. I'll show you how to do that, and that'll be it. When we do put this thing back together, you can see the sealant here. It's all kind of screwed up. What I'm going to do is get some RGB black sealant and just add to what's there. Probably won't take this out because, I mean, it doesn't need to be taken out. But yeah. So I got these screws out. You can pull the projector itself out. Now, if you want to do a retro on your projector because you don't like these ones, some people do that to get better performance out of it. This is a time when you would do that. But for me, I'm just going to take out these screws. There's 3 of them around the projector, so I can get to this blue shield you see there. So this is the shield flip itself. This is where things start to get a bit tricky. This wasn't really very well explained in all the walkthroughs and tutorials that I've looked at for this stuff. And so I'm going to go over this in a bit of detail. So the beam pattern that we normally have is pretty much this. The light will come here, it'll hit this spot here and become that shape, but it'll also have this little deflector here that deflects it away from that hole. So what we want to do when we flip this is now obviously you can see there's a convex or concave, whatever you want to call it, spot there, and there's a hole. So what we need to do is take this off because it doesn't matter anymore and use that to block that hole. Or if you want, you can fill that hole some other way. I'm going to Dremel this off and then see what my options are. And the other thing we want to do is flatten that spot. So I'm going to take a little piece of wood on each side, put it in my clamp over there, and flatten that metal out as best I can. So let's get to it. So I just cut a couple blocks of wood to use as some braces, and that's what I'm using to distribute the force. The clamp was not able to fully flatten the thing. What I did is I ended up cutting off more, that little double part that was under. I cut that off, then I put it back into the clamp and was able to get it pretty flat. And then I took some JB Weld and used the pieces that I cut off to glue back on there and fill the holes that were there. So this looks kind of rough from this side, but essentially what we want is that cutoff, which you can see is nicely well preserved there. Nothing is obscuring it, and the holes are filled. So that'll do the job. I'll put it back on, and if I have any problems, I'll adjust later. Okay, so I did the shield flip and the shield flatten and bolted the projector back together. And as you can see, that's a pretty tight pattern. Lots of nice blue up there, super clean cutoff line. It's going the direction we want with the more light on the right side and less light on the left. Yeah, that's looking good. So all I need to do now is put the headlight back together and we have a finished headlight. Okay, so there you have it. That's really all the steps you need to do to convert your JDM Facelight Rev A-C headlights to USDM compatible headlights for your car. Just make sure you heat up the silicone when you put it back together and really smush it back in there. But other than that, I'm going to move on to some other things, and I think that's it for this video. It's been a long one. If you're interested in what I've got going on here, make sure you give me a like and a subscribe. I've got some other mods I'm doing with this car even while I do the conversion. And yeah, next thing to do is just polish this headlight up and get it nice and clear and throw everything together.